Please be seated. Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you. All right. Do you feel like this gospel is similar to last week's? And do you ever get tired of me preaching the same sermon again and again and again? Because sometimes I get sick of preaching the same sermon again, and I joke that I have 3. Don't be a jerk. Love everybody. Love God. Like that's really about all that I ever say. I just say it differently, I guess. I try and use different words, but really at the end of the day, don't be a jerk. Love God. Love self. Love others. So there you go. Go home. It's been fun. But now I want to talk about this gospel because I think this gospel can highlight what being a Christian is like in our culture and time. And it goes something like this. You talk to somebody about being a Christian, they're like, have you been saved? And I'm like, was I lost? I didn't know. They're like, well, you have to be saved so you can go to heaven. And I was like, oh, okay. The point of the gospel is not for you to get stuff. Let me make this perfectly clear. God is not a vending machine where we put in a certain number of prayers, maybe some nice actions for other people, but we say the right thing and then we get the stuff that we want, right? Some divine Santa Claus, if you will. Absolutely wrong. But the comforting thing should be that this has been an issue for perpetuity, okay? We have always struggled with this relationship with God. That we really, really want stuff. We really, really love ourselves a whole lot. And if we do what God says we have to do, then maybe we'll get something that we want, right? And so James and John, it goes something like this. They were like, we're really good disciples. Can we call dibs? Can we call shotgun for all of eternity? Because I don't know if you know about the rest of these disciples, but shh, we're your favorites, right? And Jesus is like, I'm sorry, what? Like, do you even know what you're talking about? And they're like, well, yeah, we're your favorites, right? So we call dibs. And Jesus is like, what? And I love what Jesus does because it's the most parenty thing to ever parent. We've all done this, right? Instead of saying, stop being a toad, we say things like, you know what? You know how some kids throw temper tantrums in public? I think it's awesome that you don't do that. And they totally do, right? Isn't that great how, like, you don't do that? That's what Jesus basically says to the whole disciple. Because the other disciples do catch on to what James and John are doing. And they're like, I'm sorry, did you just call dibs for eternity? And they're like, what? Well, yeah, yeah. And so they all start bickering and fighting because you've been on that road trip with your kids and somebody tries to call dibs on the front seat or dibs on something. Yeah. And all you know what ensues, right? Yeah. So Jesus is like, oh, okay. So Jesus sits everybody down and says, I'm really glad you're not like the Gentiles. I'm really glad you're not like those kids at the movie theater. Isn't that great that you're not like that, even though that's exactly what they're doing? Precisely what they're doing. But the thing is, we all struggle with this. We all struggle with, why do we follow Christ? Why do we live the gospel? Do we do it for ourselves? Do we do it for our own glory because we'll get really good attention? And doesn't it look awesome to wear the really cool robes and have all the really cool stuff? And wouldn't it be cool if when we died, we went to this awesome place? Do you ever feel like I sell you fire insurance? Do you ever, because sometimes I feel, my husband, when I was going bivocational, was like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I could sell stuff, I guess. And he's like, you going into the business world, you can't sell anything. You're like way too ethical. And I said, I sell stuff. I sell people something that they're not even sure they believe in. And by the time you find out if it's true or not, you're already dead and you can't even yell at me about it. That didn't go over very well. So that's why I became a school counselor instead. I don't sell anything. I usually chase children around. But the idea that we do this for something, right? Our own greed and our own self-centeredness is like, well, I just want to know that when I die, I'm going to get this stuff that I want. If I join the church, then maybe like I'll be better off trying to get in the country club because I'll know the right people. Or maybe I can write it on my resume. The number of politicians who like to claim that they go to a certain church that they've never walked into, I love it. I've been wandering around Lisa. Guys, I've been here for 12 years. I know who goes here and who doesn't, okay? I have a rough idea. But then I'll be coming across something and like on a resume, they attend St. Anne's Episcopal Church. And I'm like, oh, do they? Do they? Interesting. Because I haven't seen you at Christmas and Easter. But we have this idea that if we do these things, then we'll get this stuff. And James and John and all the disciples, frankly, struggle with this. Like, well, if I follow Jesus, then, what will I get? The very opposite is the truth. Following the gospel means that we are completely stripped of self. Completely. It doesn't matter. We follow God because we understand that our creation is so enormous, that the God that we follow is so enormous that we can't do anything but follow this gospel. We can't do anything but serve all people. Not because it will get us stuff, but because when we look at the enormity of what you and I claim to be true, think about it. Think about what you and I claim to be true. That God created humans and loves us so intensely that we are forgiven of all of our nasty humanness, which is pretty nasty, some of it. That God loves us so much that God came to be with us, to sacrifice all things to be with us. Think about that. Do we really, truly believe that? Do we? Do we believe that God loves us so intensely that these things are true? Do you believe that? Because if we do believe that, if we do, we can't live any other way. It's that simple. If we believe that the God we talk about is true, how can I look at any part of creation and not love it? Because I know that God created it and loves it. So whether or not I agree with it all the time, whether or not I like all of creation all the time, don't get me wrong. The first question, if I die and I go to heaven, is going to be like, what up with roaches? And I know that God created them. And I get that I'm supposed to think that they're whatever. But I don't. But if we really truly believe these things that you and I claim, we can't worry about dibs. We don't care about dibs. We care about serving every single creature in society, because when we do that, when we serve and love others, we serve and love the God that we claim exists. It is really that simple. So, no dibs. No shotgun. You can call it, but Jesus is going to laugh at you.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
I'm good. I'm just chubby. I'm dragging around a lot more me than I used to have to drag around. And it's taking me a lot longer to